Are you getting beat up about the price of your seed? I've been there, done that, and got the t-shirt. One year I got hammered so much on price that I even got infected with the price disease. In this video, I will tell you the story of how it happened and how it almost cost me and our company its life. Nobody is totally immune to the price disease, not even me. Back in the late 1980s, one of the worst farm crises was in full swing. Interest rates were at their all-time highs, the price of land had skyrocketed, and farmers used those situations as buying power. As a result, many farmers greatly overextended themselves without sufficient equity to back up their investments. And suddenly, the banks got nervous and called in many of the loans. At that time, my wife Sharon and I lived across the street from the county courthouse here in Olivia, Minnesota. Almost every week, it seemed, they were auctioning off farms on the courthouse steps at a sheriff's sale. I felt terrible. Some of those victims had been my customers. It was a tough time to be a farmer and a tough time to be in the seed business. Being a seed seller at that time, I was getting hammered by customers about the price of our seed. Plus, some of the farmers I was calling on really didn't know whether or not they would be farming the next year. But I knew I wanted to help them any way I could, and the best way I knew was to give them a better price on their seed. I wasn't quite sure how to do it, but in my mind, no amount of discount was too much. I was definitely infected with the price disease. What I didn't know at the time was how fortunate I was to have a boss much smarter than me. His name was Keith Kelchin, but we called him Doc because of his vast knowledge of plant breeding and ability to manage people. It seemed like such an appropriate nickname. But he was not only a brilliant marketer and a leader, but most of all, our company president. One day I asked Doc to join me in the conference room because I wanted to talk with him about a very important issue. I told him that our two biggest competitors had just dropped the price of their seed corn $20 per unit. Remember, this is back when the top retail price of seed was only about $70 versus several $100s per unit today. A $20 price decrease at that time was a huge discount. He asked me what I wanted to do about it. I said I felt we needed to drop our price at least $5 per unit to show farmers we understand their difficulties and that we're trying to help them the best way we can. Doc looked up at me and chuckled. He said, "Heck, $5 isn't going to get anyone's attention. If you're going to drop your price, you need to drop at least by $10 a unit." I couldn't believe he was even entertaining the idea. I expected him to tell me immediately why we will never drop our price. But he didn't. He just listened. I said, "Well, what can we do?" He said, "What do you want to do? You're the VP in charge of sales. Just tell me what you want to do." I said, "I want to drop our price $10 per unit." And Doc said, "Okay, tomorrow I'll have our administrative secretary send a letter to our sales force and tell them we're dropping our prices $10 per unit on all of our varieties." I said, "Wow, thank you so much. That's going to help me a lot." Then he said, "Before we leave the room, go up to the whiteboard and write down some numbers for me." I said, "Okay, no problem." He said, "Write down the number of customers we currently have on the board." I wrote the number 12,000. He said, "Write the average order size we are selling right now to all customers." I wrote 45. He said, "Now write $10 next to those numbers, then look at all the numbers you wrote." I put down the marker and said, "Forget it, Doc. I'm sorry I brought it up." Little did I know that Doc was also a field medic. He knew how to patch up and cure a member of his fighting team who had been infected with the price disease. At that very moment, I was cured. He showed me that by dropping our price $10 per unit, we would have saved the average customer $450, but it cost our young company $5.4 million. The customer is out of farming and we are out of the seed business because margins back in those days were not high enough to support price reductions of that magnitude. From that day forward, I never asked to lower price again. You see, on that day, Doc taught me that you give up a customer if you won't pay your price, but you never give up your margins. You can never get those back. I also learned that a customer is never mad at you if he thinks you're too high priced. He just thinks you're too high priced. And you can go back and call on him anytime you want. But if a customer is upset with you because the quality is poor or the service is poor, because you can't afford to provide the best, you'll have a very hard time getting him back. I understand there's a lot of pressure on seed sellers to drop prices this year, from both the marketplace and growers. I'm in the marketplace a lot with growers. I hear it all the time. But in addition to the fact that lowering price takes away your company's ability to supply top value, lowering price can also develop into something more serious that can infect your entire team: the price disease. A single case of the price disease that has gone undiagnosed or untreated can quickly develop into an outbreak. Right now, the price disease is running rampant, and this contagious disease can quickly turn into a full-blown epidemic if seed sellers and seed companies do not get themselves and their customers vaccinated. I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of the price disease on sales reps who were never vaccinated with value selling skills, and it's not a pretty sight. As I've said before, in my opinion, everybody has great products. The difference maker is always a salesperson. It's the only value that comes with the transaction. The only thing the farmer pays for is the value the person brings. And once he says your price is too high, he basically says you, the salesperson, are worth nothing. Yet you are the only real value he gets. So how valuable are you? Or has this marketplace caused you to become infected with the price disease too? Hit me up with an email and tell me. I'd love to hear from you. Also be on the lookout for my upcoming emails where I will give you some free tips and some sales tools you can invest in that will show you how to inoculate yourself against this horrible, horrible disease. Happy selling. I'm Rod Ostis.